Hey guys, it's Greg from East Coast Dives, and today is the return of Theory Thursday. Alright guys, today is the first episode of the return of Theory Thursday. Theory Thursday was one of my popular series where I talked to you guys about the ideas and concepts of how to string a lacrosse head, rather than just the pattern, so you can start to really learn the intricacies of stringing, really understand it for yourself, and make your own pattern. So I ran this series a little while back, and we had a ton of episodes. So this episode is going to be a recap of some of the most important points of that episode, or the previous episodes. I'm going to list all the theory episodes in the description. If you haven't seen them, I highly recommend watching at least a few of them. They're much better than the tutorials, and probably some of the most educational videos that I have got up on YouTube. So we're going to touch on some of the most important points of the theory videos, and then next week we're going to start with all fresh new content. If you guys have ideas for what kind of theory videos you'd like to see after checking out the ones in the description, you see some you didn't, you don't see some that you wanted, leave them in the comments so I can take them and try and make an episode in the future about it. So the first one we're going to talk about is how to create a channel. This is probably the most popular one, and people always really, that's one of the common questions that I get is, how do I create a channel in my head? How do I make a nice channel? And let you know, it's pretty simple. So number one, you're going to want to string your top string very tightly. That's pretty simple. After that, it is pretty easy. You just want to string the top 3, 4, or 5 mesh diamonds, pulling them down as tightly as you can. So in some heads, this is going to require skipping sidewall holes so that you can pull those mesh diamonds down tightly. In a head like this, the Evo X with few sidewall holes, I pulled the first 3 down very tight with interlocks, and then did a 1 interlock because I had kind of a gap to pull that 4th and 5th diamond down tight. As a general rule, you want to create a channel that is just about a ball's width. This works for most people. Some people like it a little tighter, some people like it a little looser, but you can see in this head the channel is not too tight, whereas the ball is going to get caught up in it, but just tight enough to give you consistency and hold. So you want to create a channel that's just the width of the ball. So my rule of thumb is, for a high pocket or a mid-high pocket, I do 3 mesh holes down as tightly as humanly possible, and then the 4th one pull down just a little less tight, and then double or triple right after the 4th one to move that pocket up. For a mid pocket, I'll do 4 mesh holes down as tightly as possible, and then probably a 2 and then some 1s. And for a mid-low or a low pocket, I'll probably do 5 mesh holes down as tight as possible, and then do some singles down at the bottom to bag that low pocket out. So this can kind of change from head to head. This is a very wide head, so it required 5 tight interlocks, tight mesh holes to create the channel. But if it's a little more narrow, like a clutch or a Lakota, it doesn't require quite as many. It's much easier because of that tight pinch and flare. So that is the basics of how to create a channel on your stick, which is going to add consistency, hold, a little bit of whip, and overall just make your stick perform better. So now we've got shooting strings. You can check out the full episode on shooting strings down below, but the basics are, there's 3 main types. There's weaved, there's rolled, and there's barreled. So weaved is just 2 strings through each hole. It's the simplest of string, just back and forth, the most simple looking, and the ones that I recommend for pretty much everyone. Barreled is wrapping 1 more twist around in each hole. These are mostly used in P34, and sometimes I use barreled nylons, but not often. Really, weaved are the easiest. And then there's rolled, which is where 1 string runs across the back without going through any diamonds, and another one rolls around it and actually sits between 2 rows of diamonds rather than in 1 row of diamonds. And those provide the least whip and the least snag, but most people don't use them. They're pretty uncommon. So you have those 3 types of shooters, and then there's nylons, which I use sideball strings for. You can use nylon, you can use thick nylon, depending on how you like it to feel. And then there's cloth shooters, which are a little bit thicker and are a little more gradual, a little more smooth, rather than the nylons, which will hit the ball a little bit more. So after that, there's different configurations you can put your shooting strings in. There's straights, U's, and V's. So straights are what you see here. They just go straight across the head, all in one diamond row. You can use nylons or you can use shooting strings. U's are what you see here. This is a 5-point U, this is a 3-point U. So 5 diamonds across the top, and then straight down the diagonals, 3 diamonds across the top, straight down the diagonals. They're nice for if you can use them, which you can't anymore in NCAA. They're very nice for keeping the ball down there and adding a nice gradual release with a little hold. And finally, there's V's, which are not very common. Those usually come to either a single diamond point or a 2 diamond point. And they're more gradual than the U's are, going to give you a little less hold and a little bit of a smoother release. So the final topic I want to touch on is how to create whip or remove whip from your stick. So whip is essentially how high or low your stick is going to throw. So if you throw it and it comes out a little high, you need a little more whip. If you throw it, it goes right in the ground, you need a little less whip. So to adjust that, it's pretty simple. You can have U's, wider U's, have more whip, and they're just going to give you a little bit more whip and a little more hold. Narrower U's and V's are going to give you less whip. Nylons generally give you a little bit more snap on the ball and will pull it down a little bit more if they're pulled tightly. So you can add some nylons, especially a really tight one if you need some more whip. So those are 2 ways you can adjust the shooting strings. Finally, another way to add more whip is to have a deeper, more defined pocket. That's going to increase the angle that the pocket sits at and make the ball come out lower. Another way of accomplishing this is to move the pocket up. So if your pocket is up here and it has to release by here, the angle, the slope that it's releasing on is going to be much more extreme, and the ball is going to come out a little bit lower, thus adding a little more whip. To remove whip, you can move the pocket down. You can certainly make it shallower. Making your pocket shallower is the easiest way to reduce whip, but it will also reduce the hold, and it's not going to feel quite as nice sitting in the stick. Mostly I recommend moving the pocket down or widening the channel a little bit and just giving that really smooth release. If you want a really low whip pocket, I recommend just 3 or 4 straight shooters and a mid-low pocket. Give it that really smooth release. If you want a really high whip pocket, I recommend a mid-high pocket with maybe a 6 and a 4 diamond U or a 5 and a 3 diamond U and a nylon or 2 nylons. So you can work your way between that any way that you want. Alright guys, so hope you enjoyed this first episode. Make sure to check out all the previous episodes in the description. Leave your suggestions for future episodes in the comments. Like this if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.